Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes on this Monday, the 10th of June. And coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we'll be talking about the dry weather that's in much of the eastern part of the United States, pockets of severe weather in across the south and back into the plains, and the likelihood that we're going to see torrential rains developing for central and particularly for South Florida as the week rolls on. So all of that on the table tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And as far as watches and warnings are concerned, we really don't have a whole lot going on this morning. We're looking at heat issues in parts of Arizona, southern Nevada, and into parts of California. Heat advisories also up to parts of California. And got some frost warnings this morning in northeastern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. But up and down the eastern seaboard, it's fine. A little bit of fog in the Tennessee Valley. And that's going to probably burn off relatively quickly, we think, and lead to another nice day in much of the east. Now, there's a frontal boundary that is lying across North Carolina, southern parts of North Carolina, into central Georgia and points westward. You can see that there's still some blips of showers and thunderstorms with these lightning strikes showing up on the satellite loop. Most of that moving to the east. There's an upper trough weak one that is swinging down from the Great Lakes, and this is reinforcing the drier air that's covering the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. And we're looking at some thunderstorms this morning that are affecting parts of West Texas and even into also the northwestern plains. So all of that is on the table today, but much of the area from the upper Mississippi Valley to the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states looks good. Now, here's what the radar looks like as of 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Still seeing a little bit of shower activity way up in northern New York and northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern Maine. You've got the showers and storms in an east-west band from southern portions of North Carolina westward across North Georgia into northern Alabama, and then another, little bit of a break once you get into Mississippi. Then they pick up again in West Texas. So this is basically the weather front that moved through the east yesterday, trying to push southward. And you see the activity that's up in the northern plains. The Storm Prediction Center for today, as we check out the risk areas, it's going to be in the southeast U.S., coastal South Carolina into coastal Georgia, and then a little bit of ways inland. Marginal risk that goes back to about southern Alabama and Mississippi. Also in the western plains from Texas northward up into the western Dakotas, where we have one area of slight risk, and it's in that area that we have 2% tornado risk, and also a small area in southeast Georgia where we see elevated tornado risk. For tomorrow, it's marginal risk up in parts of Minnesota and Iowa, also in West Texas, northwestward into southern Colorado. And then as we head on into Wednesday, this is Tuesday, I'm sorry, Wednesday into Thursday, we are looking at risk that is indicated. This was in the long range over the weekend, and now we've moved into the short range. So we've got a slight risk, southern Minnesota, northwest Iowa, eastern South Dakota, a small portion of northeast Nebraska, and western Wisconsin. And in the long range, we're seeing on day 4 an area of implied slight risk from southeastern Michigan, southwestward across northern Missouri, southern Iowa, and back into portions of eastern Nebraska and eastern Kansas. So anytime SPC's got something in the long range, it's always a good idea to pay attention. Now, as far as rainfall is concerned, in much of the Northeast, except for northern New York and northern New England, where we're looking at anywhere from an additional half inch to an inch in some places, and this is for the next 7 days, taking us to next Monday morning. Central and southern New England, down into the Carolinas and North Georgia, northern Alabama, showing minimal amounts of rain, under a tenth of an inch, and in the areas you see with no color at all, like in parts of south central Pennsylvania, Virginia into North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, and the lower most of the Ohio Valley, indicating no rain forecast over the next 7 days. The heavy precip in Florida, we're looking at in the yellow, the darker yellow actually from WPC marks the 7 to 10 inch zone. The brighter yellow in southwest Florida is 10 to 15 inches spread out over the next 7 days. So there's going to be some flooding issues showing up in Central and South Florida, and I've received number of messages from folks saying how it's been very dry in Florida. We could certainly use the rain. Rain, yes. I don't know about 15 inches squeezed in over a matter of a couple of days, but this is going to create some problems as we have tropical moisture flowing out of the Caribbean into Florida. Also in the parts of central and west Texas, and then on up into the northern plains into the western Great Lakes, we're looking at anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half. So as we move forward, with an upper low sitting in eastern Canada, it's dictating the flow and keeping things dry and mostly nice in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states for today and for tomorrow. You can see the area, the old front now stalling out across Florida into the Gulf of Mexico, and gradually it opens up an alleyway for tropical moisture to start moving northward into Florida, beginning tonight into Tuesday, and then that's going to continue into Wednesday. In the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, with temperatures in the upper 70s to around 80 or so today, upper 70s and low 80s for Tuesday, and then low to mid 80s on Wednesday. So you get the idea. We're going to be steadily climbing as this next high settles in the Mid-Atlantic and then opens up a southwest flow of very warm air. I think we'll be in the upper 80s to around 90 or so on Thursday. And Friday, we could be in the upper 80s and low 90s. Friday's the day where we could see a cold front move through sometime Friday night into early Saturday morning with the chance for some showers and thunderstorms. If everything stays on schedule, it will leave us with a nice Saturday dayside and a very nice Father's Day, at least the way that's looking. In the meantime, I just want to emphasize with what's going on in Florida that it doesn't really matter here too much if a tropical depression or tropical storm forms in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, which is somewhat possible, but because the bottom line is that that stalled frontal boundary opens up this alleyway for a lot of moisture to move northward, and that's just going to continue for starting to Tuesday and then lasting pretty much through the rest of the week and into the weekend. And of course, all of this is going to be discussed in detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can tune into that at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time on my YouTube channel. And of course, you could also listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and various other places where podcasts fall home. So mark it down and we'll see you tonight.